this action on bills previously heard, and I would, that is, we're gonna work 2099 to begin with, and I would entertain an motion for discussion. Is there a motion pertaining to towards moving action? Hold on a second. I'm going to go ahead and have you describe the bill a little bit before any possible amendments, and if you would remind the committee what we have. Thank you, folks.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2099 is the bill that amends a statute. The statute currently prohibits city or counties from conducting inspections on the interior of residential property. The bill would make an exception that would allow a city or county to do periodic property inspections of the interior of residential housing property in cases where the owner of the property is receiving governmental rental subsidies. So this would generally be Section 8 housing, that type of rental subsidy housing. The city or county must provide reasonable notice prior to the inspection. They may require the landlord to perform random inspections if there's been a code violation complaint. If the tenant objects to an inspection, then the city or county would be required to go get a search warrant in order to conduct the inspection.
All right. Any questions before we start action on this bill? Okay. And I would entertain a motion for discussion.
I so move.
There's a motion to move it out. Is that correct? Second. And seconded. Now for discussion. Are there any amendments? And I will go ahead and defer to Jason for Whitney Dameron has provided an amendment for us to consider, and we will get an explanation as soon as it's handed out.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the balloon amendment that was just passed out would amend that new language in subsection C of the bill to restrict the new provisions just to the city of Topeka, requiring them to adopt an ordinance in order to begin requiring periodic property inspections of residential property. It would also clarify that this would only apply to property where the owner of the property is receiving direct public financial assistance for tenant rent, and then adds a definition of direct public financial assistance to mean financial payment or consideration from a governmental unit to subsidize rental payments.
Right. Are there any questions for the reviser? Have that. If there's not, is there a motion regarding this amendment? Representative Slingensief.
I'll move adoption of the amendment.
Is there a second? Seconded by the minority member. For discussion. Representative Pishney.
Mr. Chairman, I always get concerned when we start having individual cities or counties or entities referenced in state statute rather than maybe something that applies to everybody. I certainly, as I've expressed before, I don't want something to handicap someone. So from that standpoint, I think this amendment's appropriate in that it's pinpointing Topeka as the issue here. However, it's my understanding, though, that cities can charter out of the non-uniform law, and so it appears that the process is already there for cities to take care of these kinds of issues without us having something else in state statute. So that's my comment in the discussion of this amendment.
My brief comment in regards to that is not a rebuttal, but also a reminder that there's about 600 cities in the state, and the paperwork and process of chartering out from something that is not yet proven to be valuable for everybody may be more intense than it's just a thought that it may be more intense than allowing it to be identified and then to be adopted or attached. Just a thought.
No, and Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the spirit in which that comment's offered. I guess I just wonder whether or not we need to be fixing problems that could be fixed, even if it does take some additional steps to get that done, if that process is already in place. So that's my only comment about it. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Yes, Minority Member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur. I don't like bills that relate to just one city. But this is an extraordinary case, and I agree with the chair of I'd rather cities opt in rather than automatically having the burden of opting out. I think I'd rather not impose all of this on cities because we have a lot of diversity and variety amongst what cities are capable of doing, what they want to do, where they want to be involved. So I'm going to make an exception to my regular on this, and I think it's a good amendment. It returns it to what the original intent of the bill was anyway. We were told in the original testimony they intended this to be just Topeka, so I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Other comments, other questions? Okay. Would you like to renew your, let's see, the motion was made by? Okay, Representative Essex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate this amendment. I wanted to just entertain a conversation. Would it be better if we did a sunset on this to see how it works? I mean, we don't have a sunset amendment on this. Would this help with the situation to see how it's, after a couple of years, how it's working and we can renew it later? I don't know if that's something we want to entertain or not.
Yes, Minority Member, yes. You have a comment back on that?
I would just say give that a little time.
Other comments? Okay. Representative, do you want to renew your, move your motion?
I move the motion.
All right, all in favor of this amendment, say aye. All opposed? And it appears the ayes have it, and we are back on the bill. If anybody would like their votes recorded, since that seems to be the mode of the day, Representative Sleegensheepen and anyone else wish to have their votes recorded? Not seeing any. Thank you, Representative. And we're back on the bill.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have an amendment.
Okay. We'll wait till that's passed out. The amendment seems fairly specific and direct. Would you like to describe your amendment?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since the examples we saw of the property of the HUD housing seem to be just really a bad case, I would like to propose that we just have the direct financial assistance from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development as the sole source of the definition of governmental subsidies.
And so would that be that you would not that the bill would not apply to subsidies in general, but to subsidies that were housing and urban development. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, that was my intent.
Okay. So is that a motion?
Yes, I've moved that, my amendment as a motion
Is
favorably.
there a second for discussion? Representative Collins for a second. And for discussion, is there, yes, Representative Barth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure procedurally I understand what your amendment's trying to do as well. I know you have it crossing out governmental rental subsidies, but we just approved the direct public financial assistance for tenant rent as it. So are we actually amending the new language we just amended? So to clarify, and then I have a follow-up as well.
Revisor?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, because this is amending the same portion of the bill as a previously adopted amendment, if the committee so wishes, it can direct the reviser to coordinate so that the two amendments work together. In this case, I would recommend that the specificity of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development be included in the definition that the committee just adopted in the previous amendment, so that direct public financial assistance would mean a financial payment or consideration from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. That would marry the two amendments, I think, with the intent of the committee.
So that would just expand the second bullet of the balloon to defining. Any questions for revisor before we move? Does that help you?
I did have a follow-up question, and related to see if Vice Chair Blex would want this or not, or if this works for you. And this is just a question. And the other one, where yours says, for in urban development, the other one says for tenant rent. I didn't know if you wanted it to say tenant rent or not. And so just offering that as a point of clarification for you. And
Right now we're looking at the amendment itself as presented.
Can you work that out? My intent was for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. However, I believe in conversation with the revisor that can be worked out to make that language workable.
And it's more for your benefit, just to make sure your intent is covered, whatever you're looking to do, I would support that.
That's correct.
I would welcome Mr. Duncan, Spencer Duncan.
I have one clarification maybe, because I don't believe this is the intent, and Jason can fix it when he does the amendment if I'm right. Right now, we can still, if we give city funds to these projects, put in some kind of inspection process. I want to make sure that this doesn't unintendedly take away the local dollar authority and only limit us to HUD projects. And I don't think that's your intent. So I just wanted to, as he crafts his amendment, if he doesn't think that's going to take away our authority, great. And if he does, write something in there to make sure it doesn't. That's all I wanted to point out.
I'll let him ponder that a little.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there other comments to bring forth now before? Yes, Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm not sure where my comment should fit into this discussion, but it appears to me that, we do have a serious problem here that needs addressing, and this is one method of addressing that. However, when you begin crafting public policy very narrowly to one specific problem, I think that two things. One, we were not really given clear testimony of how this inspection is going to solve this problem. And number two, there appears to be other methods of remedy for this problem that would be much more effective and bring relief to the people much quicker. And so those two things really weigh on my mind as we try to solve this problem with state policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments at this time? Representative Essex and, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to ask of the reviser if we could, about Spencer Duncan's concerns. Are these going to change any authority of a city to be able to do inspections as well? Just wanted to make sure we weren't infringing on that.
Yes, Mr. Reviser.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it is my understanding, and Mr. Duncan can correct me if I'm wrong, but that the inspections the city currently does are a condition of receipt of governmental benefits provided by the city. And so that's a contractual matter between the city and the property owner for receiving subsidies on the condition of allowing inspections. This provision does not contemplate any such contractual arrangements that the city might otherwise have. And so I do not believe that by limiting this provision just to the receipt of HUD benefits for the property owner, it would impact the city's ability to independently contract with property owners for city subsidies on the condition of conducting inspections.
Two separate tracks, two separate considerations. All right. Someone else? Okay, or if we're ready to consider the motion, renew your motion.
Yeah, I move my amendment.
Motion's been made to move the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay, okay. And motion passes with one dissension. Okay, and we're back on the bill as amended so far. And minority member, would you like to have the microphone?
I have an amendment.
I believe everyone has received a copy. And this this amendment may address some concerns. Would you like to describe what you're hoping to accomplish?
So the amendment puts a sunset on the bill so that in 5 years we can reassess how that is working and if it's a positive or negative.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
I move we adopt the amendment as written.
Seconded by Representative Blacks. And for discussion, I think one thing this may do is allow this to be a more of a pilot project rather than a broad spectrum law to be established permanently in the state. But that allows one city to be a pilot to test this and see if it actually helps the process any. And others may be able to ascribe to it knowing that it's going to sunset in 2030. Other thoughts?
I move my amendment.
repeat that on the mic. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And abstain, or dissent? And no dissent. Okay. And that's one day. Okay, thank you, sir. All right. And now we're back on the bill. There is now amended. Is there a motion on the bill as amended? Representative Slingensief.
Move that we pass the bill out favorably as amended.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chair. And if there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, one. And motion passes, and it will be sent on for consideration in the House. Thank you. Now, we are ready for a hearing. Thank you for your patience, and we'll move on to a hearing of House Bill 2160. Mr. Advisor, if you'd introduce us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 2160 would enact a Kansas Municipal Employee Whistleblower Act. There is currently a statute known as the Kansas Whistleblower Act that provides legal protections for state employees who report or disclose unlawful or dangerous actions by state agencies. Under both the current State Employee Act and under the proposed act under the bill, an employer would be prohibited from taking any disciplinary action against an employee for engaging in certain conduct, such as reporting or disclosing these actions. That disciplinary action is defined to include dismissal from work, demotions, transfers, reassignments, suspensions, reprimands, warnings, or the withholding of work from the employee. The three actions that are protected under the State Employee Act are included in House Bill 2160 for municipal employees. This includes discussion of agency operations, including matters relating to public health, safety, and welfare with legislators or auditing agencies. And by auditing agencies, we're talking about not only legislative post-audit, but any other governmental audits that may be required under federal law or federal regulations for the particular operations or agencies involved. It also includes employee conduct that is reporting violations of state or federal law or rules and regulations, and it protects employees from being required to give notice to a supervisor prior to making those reports. So a supervisor or employing agency can't punish an employee for taking any of those actions under the current state law or under what's proposed under 2160. In addition to that, under 2160, municipal employees would be further protected from being required to let me see here. Where'd that language go? I'm sorry. From disclosing malfeasance or misappropriation of monies or from disclosing substantial or specific dangers of public health and safety. So those two additional disclosures would be protected for municipal employees. They are not currently included under the state law. Both acts would allow an employer to require an employee to inform the supervisor if they had been asked to provide information by a legislator or auditing agency. They could require the employee to follow official policy for leaving work to appear before a legislative committee or an auditing agency. They could prohibit an employee from trying to express their own opinions or views as those of their employer. They could also take action against an employee if the employee discloses information that the employee knows or reasonably should know is false or disregards the truth or falsity of that information. If the employee discloses information that is exempt from the disclosure under the Open Records Act, or information that is confidential or privileged. And so in those instances, the employer could still take disciplinary action. Any municipal employee who feels they've the act has been violated by action that's prohibited, can seek damages in district court within 90 days, seeking damages for loss of income, equitable relief, which would be like returning to their position, and they could also pursue court costs and attorney's fees to be paid by the agency that took that disciplinary action against them. I will note it's the Municipal Employee Whistleblower Act, but the municipalities are limited in their scope under the act. It applies to counties, cities, and school districts. And so those would be the only three types of municipalities covered by this. Finally, the bill would require each of those employers to post a copy of the act in a location in their operations where employees can reasonably be expected to view it. This would go into effect July 1st, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have one question. In the verbiage of the bill, it mentions not school districts at large, but unified school districts. It doesn't say any school district, it says unified.
So unified school district is the official statutory term for all school districts. It was an old Unification of School Districts Act back in, I believe, the 60s. And so we colloquially just refer to them as school districts. Officially in state law, we often refer to them as unified school districts, which is where the USD is an official school district name.
And even though they didn't get merged with another school district, they each got re-identified as USD and given a number across.
That's correct.
Very good. All right. Question from Representative Essex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for my clarification, I might need educated on this, but when there is a Kansas Act, doesn't that fall under municipalities? Aren't they covered in that? Is it an umbrella thing or?
No, state law only applies to those the legislature deems it to apply to. And so the Kansas Whistleblower Act specifically only applies to state agencies and therefore only state employees.
Thank you.
Some other questions for the revisor before we go, move on with the hearing? If not, thank you, sir. We have a few testimonies, some on WebEx and some written, but we'll begin with our oral presentation. And if we could have Representative Carrie Barth, would you go to the microphone?
Go up there?
Yeah, for the audience, yeah, for the online. Thank you, ma'am.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Carrie Barth. I'm the House District Rep for House District 5. I represent portions of Douglas, Franklin, Miami, and Johnson counties. And I'm the person who brought this bill forward. I wish I wasn't here to have to bring forth this bill, but unfortunately there is some corruption in government and several different things that have been brought to my attention that need to be addressed that I think would help with curbing the problem that we have today. As you know, this bill applies only to cities and counties and school districts. Those were the three entities that really were the ones that were of most interest, where a lot of the problems are occurring that I have been made notified of. And there is current statute for federal, like they said, there's current statute for state and protections. But really this bill is just to provide protections for people who really love their jobs. You know, these folks in these entities, they love their jobs, they're critical to their communities, and they're just trying to do what's right. And so this bill is to help provide protections for them. And I think this is a step in the right direction for us as legislators to help them. So, in drafting this bill, I worked with the revisor here on this committee to bring forth what we needed that would specifically address what is happening here in Kansas. I'm just going to outline a few of the things that are going on that I would like to share with you. I will be a little bit more vague than I would like to be. Usually I'm a big person about transparency, but because we do not have job protections in place as of today, some people risk losing their jobs with too much detail being brought forward.
Can I interrupt just a second? And I think that's a really important point, is that we're not speaking about specific cases. We're speaking about process. And if we create a process that takes care of those things, then those people you're talking about can adhere to those and make use of them. But we're not on no trials here. We're just simply trying to deal with things that you're recognizing and others may recognize as being problems that can be addressed. Thank you.
I think that some of the testimony that you have in the written testimony, actually are quite a few of the folks' information that has been brought forward to me, and I would suggest that you read each and every one of those because it spells out a lot of the problems in more detail. So over a year ago, I was brought to my attention a county that had a county attorney that was soliciting nude photos, that was accused of this, and that person was even using a county credit card for it. A lot of these things you actually can Google. You will find the information on your own. We have a county that the finance director's job was being threatened by bringing forth information about budget and spending types of things. I did put that person in touch with the Attorney General's office, and unfortunately, that person's job threatening not only was a threat, they actually did eliminate budget for that position specifically. I'm aware of a Kansas school district that's been threatening teachers' jobs or just making them feel like they can't come forth with information that's happening in their classroom when they bring it forth to building leadership, where they're being told not to tell parents. We've had, there's a group that's suing Douglas County commissioners. This is a current lawsuit that's going on. And it's really, there's a whistleblower that's actually already involved on that. It's a named case. And so that's actually something that's going on with the commissioner. They actually named an actual commissioner too in that. And in that process, that was because of improper behind the scenes actions that are being accused, along with not recusing this person not recusing themselves and not reporting substantial personal interest that was involved. This happens to be my county, so I've been to these meetings. I'm aware, excuse me, of these things happening. Since I filed this bill, I feel like I'm the 1-800 dial for help, as I'm getting calls from people who have other whistleblower things that they believe would provide them job protections that are just trying to do the right thing. This is not here to, hurt someone. They have to provide factual information. This is something they have to have data and facts. This is not just you don't like something and you just want to accuse somebody, or you're trying to save your own job so you don't get fired. This is truly for that person that's bringing forth information that could help the county, the city, and the school district, especially since we're talking about taxpayer dollars here. So that's just the gist of it, and I would let the others provide testimony, and if you guys have any questions, I can answer those as you have them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there questions for, we might hold questions until after we get all of our proponents. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. We have two on WebEx, two proponents. First, we have Catherine Ellsworth. Are you here?
I am here. Hi.
Hey, Catherine, thank you. I would ask if you would just give a synopsis of your testimony. We have the written form, and we appreciate your being in our meeting today.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I just wanted to what you said before about you're not trying any specific cases, and that's valid. My written testimony really just included kind of a narrative so that people can grasp some of the specific situations where a whistleblower's disclosure impacts the lives of others. I want to also mention that I really appreciate the definition of municipalities. I think it's it's well-defined and and narrows it down. And then the one thing I might consider think might be a good addition is if under the protected acts, they added the disclosure of conflicts of interest. So I noticed that's in some other whistleblower bills. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. We may come back to you if you'll hang on, and we'll see if there's any questions for you, okay?
I will. Thank you.
And in addition, we have Carrie Brandon, citizen on WebEx. Carrie, are you here with us? Carrie Brandon. Okay. Not with us yet? Okay. All right. We do have her written testimony. We appreciate that, and we will, the committee will consider that as well if they haven't already. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak as a proponent before we move on to the next section? There's a number of written proponents, and I will share all those, and all those are written and have been provided for the committee, and they include Patricia DeDamos, citizen. We have Lynn Levine, precinct committee person. Brett Anderson, Republican precinct committeeman. Carrie Sue Vosberg, Sedgwick County precinct committeewoman. Ann Dare, citizen. John Ems, Senate District Number 1. Tammy Minahan, Republican precinct committeeman, woman. Susan Walker, Bourbon County clerk. Shane Walker, Chief Operating Officer, Bourbon County. Laura Holdridge, Bourbon County Register of Deeds. And Kadrin Sullivan, I hope I got this pronunciation right. Kadrin Sullivan, English teacher, Shawnee Mission School District. And one more opportunity. Is there any others for proponent testimony? All right. Not seeing any, we'll move on to neutral. Oh, my apologies. I did give opportunity for questions. Please, committee have any questions for the conferees, any of them? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Carrie Brandon is online with us. Carrie, can you hear me? Carrie, you're on if you're there. And if you're having a hard time getting on, I'm not sure, but if keep trying, we'll come back to you. Okay. Next, we have for neutral testimony, we have 2 oral testimonies. One from John Goodyear, League of Municipalities, League of Kansas Municipalities.
Last year, John wasn't around the session because he had a baby, and today he had to take that baby, who's now almost a year-old, to the doctor. So you get Spencer Duncan, League of Kansas Municipalities today, playing a lawyer as best as I can.
Well, we're glad to have you, sir.
I will be brief. We have absolutely no issues or problems with the Whistleblower Act applying to city employees. In fact, full disclosure, and maybe this is embarrassing to admit before you, both in my role at the league and my role as a city councilman, I didn't realize that the state law didn't apply to city employees already. So I actually just lived under this assumption that the current state Whistleblower Act applied to them. So we have no issue with that. What we have are 3 suggested changes. Oh, you want to let Carrie go?
We'll get with you just shortly, okay? Hang with us, all right? Thank you.
What we have what we think are 3 fairly simple, pretty quick to put together changes that would improve the bill and sort of solve any of the concerns that we have. The first is under section 4, where it indicates disclosed malfeasance or other misappropriation.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you'll hold on until the conferee that's
Can you
speaking
hear
right
me?
now. Yes, ma'am. Well, you can't hear me, I guess. Can you hear me? Can you see us? Your audio is not working. And you can't hear me say that, so that's fine. All right.
All right, no
Spencer, if
problem.
you'll-
So the first one is under we would like a definition included of malfeasance and misappropriation. While we all sit here and say, well, those are pretty obvious, just crack open the dictionary. Those of you who've been here for a while know that this legislature, when they write bills, like to define things in bills. And we went through and found something like 20 plus different definitions that the legislature has used for malfeasance. And so, because obviously we can't agree on what a word always means, so we're okay with even the Black's Law dictionary of those words, just inserting it in here so that for the purpose of this bill, we all understand that malfeasance is, I think under the Black's Law means illegal act, or the definition's in there. So we would like to see those two definitions added. Second change is we'd like to see section 5 stricken. We think it's repetitive, creates a little more confusion and complications with the bill. And we think everything before it applies to section 5. And then the last one is, one of the pieces that's missing from this is there's no administrative step. Under the state statutes, if you have a concern, you can take an administrative step and you can go to the Civil Service Board. The reason that's important is you shouldn't have to be in a position where you have to go hire a lawyer and have to go to court if it can be remedied by somebody else before you have to spend all those fees and expenses. And so we think that by adding in the current state statute, which is 75-2973, and bringing in F, allow these folks to also appeal or send their board to the Civil Service Board, because that's not a city or county. It's a totally independent operation, and it gives them that administrative step. So we think if you made those 3 tweaks, which again, I think they're pretty simple, they're not too complicated, don't require a bunch of rewriting, they would make this thing great, and we'd have literally no issues. But again, we're neutral because we have no fundamental problem with a whistleblower law applying to city employees.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan, and we'll review those suggestions and discuss them through with our revisor.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And another opportunity for Carrie Brandon for a proponent. Are you there? Okay. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. She had reached out to me and as a testimony, and I know she has major lag right now is what's happening, so she can't see us and hear us, but that might be
At
what's
the
happening.
at the very least, we have her testimony, so we're good. All right. And moving on to our other neutral testimony from Jay Hall, Kansas Association of Counties. Thank you for your attendance, sir.
Thank you. I am Jay Hall, the Deputy Director and General Counsel for the Kansas Association of Counties. I don't want to be repetitive, but we agree with a lot of what Spencer has already said. Kansas counties also do not have any objection to having a whistleblower act. I think it's important to make sure that individuals can bring forth illegal actions without risking their jobs at the local level. We also agree with the points that Spencer brought up about some of the changes that could be helpful to this act. And the last thing I'll point out before I stand for questions is that the conflicts of interest portion is actually already covered in a separate portion of state law, and that is 75-4301A. That is the governmental ethics, and it makes it that section makes it applicable to local government officials, and that deals with substantial interests, which would deal with the conflict of interest side of things. So that's already covered, not in this particular bill, but it's already covered in a separate section of state law. With those 3 things, I think I am prepared to stand for questions from the committee.
Is there any other would wish to speak as a neutral testimony before we take questions for these 2 conferees? Not seeing any. Panel, do we have any questions for either one of the city or the county representatives? Not seeing any. That will conclude the neutral testimony. And now moving to opponent testimony. Before we consider the fact we have 1 written, is there anyone who would wish to speak as an opponent to this bill that is present with us today? All right, not seeing any. We have the written testimony of Dick Carter on behalf of the city of Overland Park. who has opponent testimony that you have online. Are there any other opponent testimonies one more time? And please consider Carrie Brandon's testimony from the proponent list. That is all we have for that item. I will close the hearing on HB 2160. For any of your ponderances, we will have a meeting on Monday at our regular time. It could be fairly short. We have one item to consider yet in this meeting, and that is the approval of the minutes dated from 2/3, 2/5, and 2/10. Is there a motion regarding those minutes? Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would make a motion that we approve the minutes for 2/3, 2/5, and 2/10 as prepared.
Okay. Accepted by, also seconded by Representative Wolf. And if no discussion, all in favor, say aye. And opposed, no. And that's it. I would have to say that if you haven't noticed, the notes have been meticulous this year. And she was really pretty good last year, but a lot of you didn't get to see that. But we really appreciate the extra effort. Sometimes people tend to generalize notes. She pretty well gets the intent of most everybody's comments and the weight of the things we do. So we appreciate you. Thank you. And we will move into Monday, and then after turnaround, we should have some bills coming back then from the Senate, or coming to us from the Senate. And appreciate your work so far this year. It's been fast and slow and intense and it's been good. Appreciate y'all, and we are adjourned for this day, and we'll see you on Monday.